Welcome in to episode 6 of the Cougar Digest podcast. I am your host, Rob Sellers from CougarDigest.com. I'm the publisher. Joined as always by Kevin, Digital Dude. How you doing, Mr. Kevin?
Doing all right, man. Good to be back. Moved in to the new place. The new castle is ready to go. Thanks for all the help out there for everybody. I didn't get any
Bigger,
help.
you said, right, too?
It's
No.
one townhome upstairs. I'm upstairs now.
Oh, okay, I
So
got you.
I got more space, which is what I wanted.
Yeah, you said more.
So I'm happy. Right now I'm happy. So everything's good right now. Can't
That's
complain
half the
about
battle,
anything.
my friend. That is half the battle.
Exactly. But I'm happy to be back on the airwaves with you.
Yeah, for sure. My apologies to everybody if you were anxiously awaiting our episode last week and missed it. We're still, we're working, get more consistent. That's why we didn't lay out any kind of time frame what we're trying to do. We're going to get as many out. I think we'll start picking it up and getting a few more now too. We're starting to get in the roll and got a few people interested in coming on, so we'll probably start spitting them out a little bit more regularly.
Well, plus with the basketball season right around the
That's
corner.
true. There's plenty more to talk about then for sure. You know what I mean? But there'll be so much going on and all that.
Seriously, Rob, cannot wait for this basketball season to get started. It's gonna be a fun conference. It really is.
It's an interesting topic that you say that on the day we're about to talk about our mid-season or whatever thoughts on football. And everybody, of course, there's plenty of people ready for basketball season already.
I forgot we had a football team.
Nah, it is. No, it is what it is. I don't blame anybody. I get it. It's tough to be excited about, and basketball is. Why wouldn't you be? So yeah, you're right though. That'll be a lot more opportunity for us to be on. Even spot stuff here and there after games, before games, big games, all that good stuff. It's crazy. It still hasn't sunk in, I don't think, as much in basketball about the Big 12 as it has on football. I was doing some stuff with the 247 today, just filling out some info on a preseason, poll or whatever that we're doing.
Yeah.
And I had to pause for a minute and think, wow, this is great. Looking at some of the teams and players that are going to be in this league. And I think it's probably a good thing for Houston that they've had the build that they have had before. I know that we're not about to get off on a basketball rant, but I think it's good for Houston that they had the build up heading into it that they did. They entered the league at full speed basically, and I get it's a tremendously more difficult league and way better competition, specifically this league. But I think they're obviously, but they're more prepared heading into it than what the football program was. So that's good. I think that's great. Everybody's worked so hard to get that where it is, and obviously it should be commended and celebrated for sure. They worked real hard to get to where they're at.
I agree, and like soon we'll start talking about that. But it's just it's on the brain already.
Cougar fans, hold on. Maybe one day there'll be there will be a calendar year where there is decent football, a positive attitude about the football program.
Yeah.
At the same time as basketball. I know everyone's been waiting for that. And we'll go from there. We'll go for 2 first, and then we'll see what happens after that. I know a lot of the other sports are pretty decent at what they do as well. We won't get off into all that. So
sounds good.
I'm going to stay in my lane, not covering other sports, as I talked about this week. So yeah. What do you think football-wise? Tell me your thoughts. I know we're what? We're getting close to the mid-year point.
I believe we are basically at mid-year for this team. 5 games in. I believe we have 5 more to go. I believe. Nothing looks easy moving forward also, so just like we see on the board, there's a lot of issues, a lot of talk, a lot of discussion about what might happen in the future. Who's to say what's going to happen at this point? Everyone has their own thoughts about it. Everyone can speculate, but we still have some games that we need to play. And that's what we need to really focus on at this point. But let's do, I guess, our mid-year, mid-season, I guess is a better way to put it. Mid-season thoughts on what's happening with this team so far. So
obviously they're coming off the Tech loss. That wasn't very friendly.
Coming off the Tech loss, but
tail 2 halves again.
I was going to say that. It's the offense looked really good in the first half, right? The defense didn't look so good, but it was score for score basically the first half, and then second half just nothing happened. Just nothing happened for us offensively, and defensively we couldn't stop them from getting into the end zone. So halfway through the season, I think we know what this team is. Okay, and
Yeah,
I think that's why we can I think speak a little bit more openly about what's going on with this program and where we're at, and maybe where we need to head, where we need to go moving forward for the rest of the season.
true.
Let's talk about some positives and some negatives. Okay,
Okay.
let's start with some positives. Okay, just because I think it's a good place to start. Okay.
Let's try to squeeze that in. I'm sure it'll be a shorter of the two, but hey, you know me. Let's try to squeeze as much positive out of it as possible.
And we may not get all the positives. Maybe there's things that we're missing. I don't
Of
know.
course.
So if you watch this and you hear it through, list some positives and
Yeah.
in the
Yeah, feel
comments
free to jump
below.
in and be more
You
interactive
know
too. Yeah, leave some questions if you have them. Leave some comments. Tell us what you
exactly.
think the positives have been. The negatives will be easy, and if you think we don't cover one, feel free to throw it in there. But yeah, positives are a little tougher to come by. So if you hear something, if you have something positive we don't cover, feel free
Exactly. So
after you
let's
subscribe and
after you
like
subscribe and follow and like.
and share.
All right. So one positive I think this year is Sammy Brown. I think it's the play of Sammy Brown on the offensive side. He's been consistent. He's been our most consistent player, I think, on the offensive side of the ball. Happy to see him finally get a touchdown this last game. Wish it didn't take 5 games to get him in the end zone, but his play I think sets up the other receivers also, because when
Yeah,
the defenses think that they need to double down on him, that's going to leave some other players open up. So the play of Sammy Brown has been a positive, if you ask
I
me.
had a good week to bring it up. Obviously, with West Virginia coming to town, him getting an opportunity to play his former teammates. That's one of the
Didn't even think about that.
guys. Obviously, Coach Holgerson touched on in the press conference for his performance, as well as one of those guys he feels like he did with Donovan Smith before the Tech game. Just got to kind of sit down and remind him to keep those emotions in check a bit. You got to be able to tune that out, and I think that's it. If ever it's important for a player this week, I think it's Sammy Brown. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
He's on the edge emotional with the way he plays, and that's not always a bad thing. You know what I mean?
yeah,
He's right on the edge sometimes, and it's going to go either way. And I wouldn't be shocked to see one tactic to be that they know he has a fuse like that, and maybe they want to try to see what they can bait him into early. You
yeah.
never know. You wouldn't rule anything out. I don't mean to imply any kind of sinister things that are about to happen or nothing, but you know what I mean. Let's we've all watched football. We all know these things exist, and these
In
players
other
know
words,
each other.
yeah,
So, Sammy Brown though, first half of the season, I thought he's had obviously front to back, like you said, offensively, he's had the most. With that in mind, of course, with Sammy in the West Virginia game this week, then back to your point and him being a positive in the first half of the season, he's been the most consistent front to back. Obviously, of the offensive players, he's been the most consistent receiver.
yeah.
I know they've all maybe had some drops, but it seems like to me in my thinking on the moment, he's had less drops than the other guys. Even if he benefited early from being opposite Matthew Golden and the attention he gets, they've probably adjusted it some at this point based on Houston's targeting of Brown versus Golden, and it's you know what I mean. It's just as much still him doing what he does type thing, and maybe that
Right.
eases things up on the other side for Matt a little bit as well. You know, what I mean, these things play hand in hand sometimes. So, tremendous first part of the season. I think he's going to be hyped for this game. It's one of those things. Not scared per se, but let's keep an eye on him and make sure he can keep himself in check in terms of those emotions. It's going to be running high for him this week. So,
I agree, but
uh,
I think give him a few plays, and I think he'll be fine. He'll settle down
no,
after a
he
few
should
plays.
settle in.
Yeah, yeah, and yeah, he's a possession receiver. He's a pro prospect, if you ask me. He is probably the biggest for me, probably the biggest positive on this team so far. Okay,
Yeah.
let's talk about another positive. Parker Jenkins. Wish it didn't
Jenkins.
wait. I wish it didn't. We didn't have to wait that long to get him in the game. And obviously, you asked the question. Why wasn't he in there second half
Yeah.
against Tech? But Parker Jenkins is a guy who is a bright spot for this team and a bright spot for the future. As long as we hang on to this guy, you
Exactly.
gotta
Start worrying, of
imagine
course,
you start
about what the
playing
future's
well.
gonna be.
Phone starts ringing off the hook. Like it, don't like it. It's the world we live in right now with,
Yeah,
with the portal.
that's true.
And hopefully he just he wants to stick around here, but he is a positive for me on this team because we had no running game until Holgerson finally started to play him.
Yeah.
And after they started playing, we have a running game after that, and
Like
whatever he
said,
has, exactly. Whatever
that's
he has,
exactly
it's
why I
different.
asked that this morning. Obviously, we're recording this Monday night, but that's exactly why I asked that this morning because ideally that would be, the first thing on my mind post game. But it's just it's worth it to give him an opportunity to maybe clarify any. I know there were rumors that potentially he could have been dinged up, and if you go to the back and get tested or whatever, that takes a little time.
Yeah.
There was a little bit of gap in there, and he was still out there returning kicks, obviously, so that kind of alleviates that. The reason it's questioned, I guess, so much is it didn't make a ton of sense. I respect what Coach Holgerson said. I understand that he's young and they probably do have him on a pitch count, so to speak, or a play clock. And so I'm fine with that. That's your decision. Obviously, this is your football team, and you make way more money. You've done this at a much higher level than I have. So I got no problem with that. Just you got to live with the results if that's it. I mean, I
Right.
understand
Good point.
everybody's, the rotation of the backs and all that. I do understand all that, but man, I know a lot of people really wish that they could have seen him continue what happened in the first half over the second half. So one of those things, you're not going to cry over spilled milk after the point. We're supposed to be talking about the positive, Kevin. See what we did there? We switched right over to the negative.
All right, then let's go back.
So Parker Jenkins, really good. Hey, tremendous athlete. Tremendous get last year in recruiting. I know people want to argue this staff's recruiting acumen, this and that. This is a guy they got and they landed, and they kept him home. I don't care what the situation is. Just like you ding him for the misses, you got to give him credit for landing him. And from what we've seen from him the last couple of games, he seems to be the real deal. He did it against different levels competition, and there wasn't a lot of. Once he got rolling, he seemed very effective.
Yeah, I agree 100%. He's definitely been a bright spot.
And he's only going to get better. I mean, he's a freshman.
Exactly.
You know what I'm saying? He's only going to get more consistent. He's going to get better in the stuff besides running the football, the blitz pickup, pass pro, and all that, and getting out of the backfield, catching the ball. I mean, these are all things he's obviously can do, but imagine getting him out of the backfield and catching the ball, a little bit of green in front of him, letting him build up that speed he's got.
Wow. Yeah. Definitely a player that I'm looking forward to see how he, continues to progress and get better.
Yeah.
Because just like you said, sky's the limit with this guy, and he's already showing a lot of great potential and a lot of great talent. So I can't wait to see what he does in the second half. One other thing that I have as a positive, and I'm going to be honest. Sorry, we struggled a little bit to find some positives, before the show. It was a struggle.
We know it's difficult to find a ton of positives. Yes, there are young people playing and getting better, all that good stuff. I mean, don't make it sound like, but for the interest of what we're doing here.
Exactly. And again, we may miss on some things. It's just our own perspectives with these things.
Yeah,
but,
for sure.
I'm happy to see that the offense can put up some points. They showed that against Tech. They showed it. That what this team is capable of doing. But so I again, I see this as a positive. Whether or not
they did good, they did emerge a bit against Sam, which makes sense. And I put as much on the board in my thoughts from the morning after that. While it looked great, I think they just simply out talented them in terms of just they were that much better of a team, and so it kind of showed back up a bit in the Tech game. But they did a good job of carrying that offense over to the Tech game. You know what I mean? They played a fairly solid game against Sam, front to back, about as complete as they have this year. Which I know that's about as best a game they had, and I guess that should be so with Sam.
Was their best game?
Yeah. But they carried it over again. I mean, we all sat watching the first half of that Tech game, and even despite like the miscues on special teams, which I mean, like I commend and tip my hat to Dane on what he said. Look, the special teams has carried us since we've been here. And so, if anybody deserves that grace, so to speak, this is me, obviously not talking about him, but if anybody kind of deserves that grace for a bad game, I think they get it in terms of what they've done over the past few seasons in kickoff, punt return with Marcus Jones and Tank Dell. I mean, all that counts, especially. And the punting has been great for a while. Those are those things that go unnoticed. So,
right.
I'm glad that he pointed that out, just in terms of that was questioned about what was that costing the game and all that. But
right.
Even without that, though, the offense was humming in that first half, and yeah, halftime happened.
Yeah.
So
and
we
then
didn't
not
see
much
Parker
happened after
Jenkins
that.
the second half. Those weaknesses on the offensive line began to rear their head a little bit more, and that, as Dan had pointed out today, it got worse as they got a little tired in the second half. They began reaching and holding, and technique started lacking and stuff like that. So, not an excuse in year 5.
Right.
There is no excuse in year 5 that gets you off the hook, but it's realistic what the excuse is, and these are things going back years that I've said similar, but have slowly backed away from as years progress because it's less and less acceptable for some of these mistakes to be going on after 3, 4, 5 years now. So it is what it is. You can explain away needing to turn the roster over. You can explain away needing to develop guys. You can explain all that early on. After
Right.
so many years, it's on you.
I agree 100%. Excuses stop being excuses when you can't get those excuses fixed, right?
Right.
I mean, and that's what we want to do is and the coach staff is doing it, we do it, the board does it. They want to find those excuses for what's happening, but at some point those excuses got to get fixed. The root causes, and you got to fix the root cause, and I think that's maybe what is getting to people so much is it's like we're saying the same things over and over and over again.
Yeah.
It's not new stuff,
Right.
So that's a good segue into some negatives. All right. And I don't know if we want to dwell on this so much. I think we do enough of that on the board, as far as the negatives goes.
Really?
Just a little bit, just a
I've
little
not
bit,
noticed.
right? Yeah. It's you only notice it when you go there, right?
Only when I log in.
Exactly. So I think the biggest negative I think right now for a lot of people is just coaching. Okay.
Yeah.
And the style that Holgerson has, I think can be good offensively. Defensively, we have issues with it, but
Right.
I think the problem now is we're not seeing that offense that we want to see from Coach Holgerson and the offenses that we know that he can run. We know that his offenses can put up points, right? We know that they can score at will, but he seems to be, and you've used this word, Rob, stubborn. He's just been stubborn, right? About certain things, not putting players
and
back
that's
in.
fine.
Or
Hey, and that is absolutely it's a quality that can be committed at times. And
it can
that's
be
fine. But I tell you what he is stubborn to the point he's willing. He knows what he wants, and that's what he's going to stick to, and he's not going to change it. So that's fair deal. You know what I mean? I commend you for that. I mean, let's not be silly. We all know the situation going on. We all know what's at play here. You know what I mean?
Right.
Let's not act like it's some kind of quiet elephant in the room or something. So.
And it's not, like you said, it's year 5. We have to see results. And for
Speaking
this
of elephant in the room, Kevin, did you see my new Bing Bong back here? By the way,
I've been staring at it nonstop.
Were you scared to ask about what Bing Bong has to do?
Well,
that's from my girls, my daughters. We grew up. We watched that movie when they were younger and all that, and so they always associated. They thought I was similar to Bing Bong with my silliness and my elephant qualities. I don't know.
And your pinkness.
I should have thought that through before I started that one, but yeah. So I told them they wanted something in the background. So I said, I don't know. I'll find something I can put back there to give y'all a nod. It's like before you shoot the free throws and stuff.
Honestly, I keep staring at it. I'm not even looking at you. I'm looking at that behind you.
If y'all don't know who Bing Bong is, go watch that movie Inside Out because Bing Bong's hilarious.
And I don't have kids
to get a tattoo of Bing Bong somewhere, but
I don't have kids, so I'm not as familiar with it.
And that's fair. You know what, dude? That's wild. That'll change. It changes your perspective on so much. It's wild in terms of. I promise I would never know who Bing Bong was without kids. I definitely never would have watched that on my own.
I would have known it if it wasn't.
Anyway, sorry, squirrel. I'm bad about that. Back to where you were at in terms of.
So I again with coaching, I don't think we need to dwell on this too much. I think we know the situation. Okay. Execution has been a problem this year. We say it a lot. Coaches coach, players execute. What they're supposed to do, and it's inconsistency with the execution.
Right.
That's
these
been a
guys,
problem.
And that's something we talked about on the board too. These guys, they can execute what's being asked of them.
Right.
But maybe they can't do it every time. That's the inconsistency you talk about. who can get it done the most. And this is when it goes all the way back to us on our discussions on recruiting offensive line on the board.
Yeah.
The difference between a 4-star, 5-star offensive lineman and a 3-star offensive line is the 4-5 guy is going to be physically more ready to be at the college level. He's going to be a more consistent guy already. That's what makes him so valuable and get the ranking. He consistently does things more often than he doesn't. And then of course upside plays into that as well, and your size and the frame and all that, where you can grow into be your footwork and all that. That's all important, right? But you get 3 stars, and they may not have as great feet. They may not be as big yet, or they have a limited frame. You're not sure how much can be added to it, or they're not consistent. They show really good flashes, but their lows are too low when they don't match up with their high. You know what I mean?
Right.
And so those are the things that, when you're dealing with recruiting offensive linemen, it is very difficult to get the elite offensive linemen. And I said on the board, pull up any recruiting class you want, sort by the year, sort by offensive tackles, and look from top to bottom where offensive tackles go. I'm talking across the country where they go. You can even look just in the state of Texas, and nonetheless, SEC schools are going to be at the top. Texas A&M, which is SEC, of course. And then you're going to see some other sneak in there, like
yes, Ohio State's probably going to sneak in.
Ohio State might be. I mean, if there's a good enough offensive lineman, of course, Ohio State. Notre Dame's going to be in there.
Michigan probably too.
Penn State, of course, and some of the real high echelon Big Ten schools. They're known for those offensive linemen. So it's not like any kind of anomaly. It comes down to, at some point, you have to be able to either land the higher rated, more prepared, more of a guarantee to be a hit. No one's a full guarantee, of course.
Right.
Or you have to have the person that knows what they're looking for, and more often than not, because no one's perfect, but more often than not, they can see something in those high 3 stars and know they can get it and know that they can develop in what they want to be. That's just kind of where they're at right now. Pat Paul is a pro. I'm quickly thinking he's going to be. He might have a shot at sneaking up into the first round. I really do think that.
Yeah.
It's gonna depend a lot on how he works after the season. You know what I mean? What his combine looks like and all that good stuff. His pro day and all that good stuff. So Pat Paul's great. I think Jack Freeman's solid where he's at. Jack Freeman's a tough dude. Okay, he plays through a lot, and I think from a leadership and captain standpoint, you couldn't ask for a better guy and all that. He gives you what you need in the middle at the moment.
I agree. Yeah.
Other than that, the consistency drops off greatly.
It does. And that's when, you have to have patience with offensive linemen, right? Because it takes time to develop. You're not going to throw in true freshmen, right?
And in year 5, guess what you don't get?
Yeah. You don't get any extra time. Yeah.
And so this is what I brought up when I mentioned in the offseason, the Brandon Jones stuff. This is why I didn't think I understand the shortcomings that Brandon Jones had recruiting. I get that completely. I've shared on the board. I don't feel that was 100% his fault. There were some things at play there that were out of his control. It is what it is, though. And they didn't win. They felt they wanted to move. And in the moment, so be it. Bring a different guy in. And I don't know why I didn't click to me sooner, but not only did you choose to move away from him, which cost you Cam Johnson, who transferred and followed him to Missouri and is starting for them on one of the top rushing teams in the country.
Yeah.
But you lost Trevonte Sylvester, who was Pat Paul's backup on the left side, and I assume would be a very good candidate this year to play right tackle, to get prepared to play left tackle when Pat Paul leaves.
Yeah.
Because you want to get him ready and get him in games and start learning the tackle. I don't think I'm reaching here. This is something that's pretty common that I've seen in football before. So you put back Cam Johnson, and then you put Trevonte Sylvester at right tackle. You figure out right guard. I mentioned on the board, in my opinion, I would go ahead and put Pancake in there if he can hold his own at this point, and go ahead and get him ready for taking over for Jack next year.
Yeah.
He's going to have to learn to play the interior. He's developed as much as I think he probably will until he starts seeing live game reps. And so you lost all that, and then you brought in Nagavi, which is from everybody I've heard thinks he's even maybe a more technical coach than what Jones was.
Yeah,
more about technique than what he was in terms of his teachings. I've heard the players like him, but he brought a more complex blocking system with him. All this pulling and all that. And you saw him get back to it a couple weeks ago, and I asked, and he did say that they had changed some. It was a Sam Houston game. They changed some of the blocking more back to zone and some of the stuff, getting the ball on the outside and all that. And so at least I see that they're trying. See what I'm saying? I'm fine with that as long as you see an attempt there to adjust to what's not working.
Right.
You see that in other spots and you don't see adjustments, and then we go back to the stubborn word. So that's my TED talk on the offensive line. I just think it's going to be tough for any coach, Dana Holgorsen included, to recruit high-level offensive linemen. Now, the transfer portal is going to help you some, but when you go to the transfer portal and you sort by tackles and pull it up, it's got a very similar theme to it, although you see some smaller schools jump up quicker because they can offer immediate playing time.
Yeah.
Right. So there is a path to get better. It's a difficult path, and they're going to have to figure out the NIL situation to be able to pay these guys, because sometimes when they just need that last little oomph to get them over the edge to come play for you, sometimes an extra zero makes it feel better. So
some trucks,
you know what I'm saying?
Or some trucks.
Utah Dodge dealership in here. Hey, hit me up, Dodge. I'm accepting sponsorships.
Yeah, that's right.
Dodge. So there you go.
Yep.
But yeah, the offensive line. You know what I'm saying? It is what it is. That's not to say these guys don't work their butts off. They don't try. They're not trying to go out and fail. I don't think it's fair when the team gets booed. I know a lot of people are booing it at the head coach and the coaching staff. But next time you're booing, if you're coherent enough, look at the players' faces when you do that. And I'm not saying you can't boo. Don't make me that guy. I'm not that guy, but I'm not saying you can. I get it, and I get people are unhappy.
Yeah, you paid for your ticket. You can do it.
Yeah, you do what you want. Absolutely.
Yeah.
So I just think sometimes, even in talking, I feel bad talking negatively about the offensive line, because I know these dudes are real guys. I got a chance to get to know a lot of these guys in the offseason through a lot of the NIL stuff I went to, and I think they're good dudes. Absolutely. I've not met one of them that's a bad guy, and it's tough for me. That's where I get a little bit hung up, is separating sometimes. Is I hate to get to know a guy like I do a lot of times with these guys, following through the recruiting process, and then I have to talk negatively about, everyone's got a ceiling, though. You have to admit that at some point. So it is what it is. The offensive line just hadn't got it done this year, and I don't put it on the Gavi all either, because he's new. I mean, who's to say he's got everything he wants as far as pieces? I can promise you that ain't the case. So
right. Well,
we're fortunate for him.
We're not telling what we're saying. When we're negatives, we're not calling these guys bad guys. They're good guys. They're great guys. I've met a lot of them too. This year.
Absolutely good dudes.
And no one's saying that. But it's just it is the inconsistency of the play.
Yeah.
They're great guys.
Right.
But they'll get it eventually, right?
Oh, absolutely.
It just everything has to come together on game days. And that's the problem here.
Was this a negative or a positive? I don't remember.
We were going on negatives.
Okay, good.
And we're still there. We're still there. Okay.
Plenty in the hopper.
We've kind of touched on a lot of the ones that I had: consistency, play, depth, coaching. O-line, which is what it is what it is, right?
Right. Defense obviously is it is what it is.
We haven't touched on defense.
It's the self-inflicted stuff that's just too much to overcome. The bad angles, the missed tackles. I know they addressed it today in the press conference.
Right.
Again, it sounds redundant. People hate to hear it. They're not coaching people to miss tackles in football. Every day you do tackling drills, you do wrap-up drills, you do punch the ball out drills. These are normal occurrences. This is
right
every day for since you were an intermediate. These are things that get done. So, but in year 5, it's got to fall at somebody's feet. So, unfortunately, again, great people, they get it right, they get it wrong. But what the better level is the ones that consistently get it more right than wrong. And so the poor tacklings plagued them. The bad angles have plagued them.
Penalties.
Injuries didn't help in the middle of the defensive line.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? That didn't help. I don't think Chidozi's been 100% quite yet. I think he's getting back there now after the bye week.
Yeah.
I think he came back and played through a little bit, trying to get back on that ankle. We all know how ankles are, and he's a big dude. Let's not act like that joint's just loving life as it is, okay? His dude's just one big muscle. So I think you'll see an increased output from him moving forward as he continues to get back healthy and can push better. Again, these are all guys that fight through stuff, and they're warriors for it type thing. So there's spots that can improve, okay? At any point, these guys, could start being more consistent. And so it's not a switch that they can find. It's just going to be they're going to have to figure it out. I don't know what you got to do to motivate them to figure it out. I mean, you know what I mean?
I mean, other than cutting playing time, like you're not the starter anymore. I'm going to put somebody else in.
You run into a desperate staff that's not looking to cut any corners because they feel like every win's got to be had, and they don't want to do that, right? I mean, I could play this out. We could sit on here for hours and talk about all that. You know what I mean? In terms of just because in year 5, there's so many, everything's more complicated now. So
right. I agree.
It is what it is. But look, the defense hasn't been great. I don't think that's any shock to anybody. I see area that it can improve. These DBs that are young, they're going to get better. Those reps are what we all saw it with Jalen Emery last year. Remember how much better he got throughout as the year went on?
Yeah.
Those reps pay off. And so it's going to get there. The younger guys, I think you'll see them get better. And it'll be fun to watch down the stretch. It will.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
I think that going into the second half, that's what I'm looking for is how is this team going to progress? How are these players going to progress? Who's going to improve? Who's going to step up? Who's going to be a surprise player that we didn't know could do this? And they put him on the field and all of a sudden he's doing it.
Right. Parker Jenkins. I mean, we're all expecting him to be good, but I don't know if they expect him for it to hit that quickly, but good that it did.
True freshman. You usually don't expect that out of true freshman, especially when you have seniors and you have players ahead of you on the depth chart.
That's true.
But, again, this is a game of, results. And if you're not making the results, then you have to try something different, right? I think we see it, but, of course, we're not there every day in practice. And we don't see what's going on,
And I tend to lend the benefit of the doubt because of that.
Yeah.
But
we don't know everything.
In year 5.
That's the theme. Okay.
This really should have been episode 5, not 6. It would have been much more fun, by the way.
What if we just keep doing? What if we just name every episode year 5? Everything is.
But in year 5,
yeah, it's the theme going now. Is
real quick before I think we're almost done here. You kind of with our little right. You think we're about done?
No, it's the whatever.
Just before, I think we have Chris Anderson coming on here shortly.
Right.
We have a game coming up. So let's see if he. Yeah, we're about to get Chris Anderson, publisher of Eers Sports on the 247 Sports Network. We'll have him in order to discuss this week's game with West Virginia. Chris Anderson, a great dude, been around for a while. I remember dealing with him when Coach Holgerson came over here from West Virginia. Obviously, that was another end of that we were working with at the time. So we'll get him in here. We'll get his thoughts on the matchup, and then we'll come back afterwards, and we'll wrap things up for the night.
Yep, sounds good.
All right, welcome back, everybody. We're joined for episode 6 by Chris Anderson, publisher of Eers Sports. Thank you very much for joining us, Chris.
Oh, thanks for having me on, guys. Appreciate it.
No, definitely. We've been working with Chris this week, obviously short week, so it's going to be a little bit jumbled up, but working with Chris already on, behind enemy line stuff we normally do, and I think we're going to record some for him as well here in a minute. So always like to stress the importance of the 247 Sports Network. If you're a subscriber, man, make sure and go over there. Don't stir stuff up over there, but feel free to go over and enjoy their information. I don't think Cougar fans are stirring up a whole lot anywhere at the moment.
We've had some good West Virginia posters on Cougar Digest.
This week we've had some guys that have come in.
Yeah, knowledgeable, not stirring it up. They're coming in and they're.
He said, "Can you send them back to my site because those guys aren't."
That's what I was thinking. I was like,
from our site, you did?
Yeah, you're not on my site right now. I know that much.
You're like, oh, that's where they went.
Yeah.
No, but hey, for sure, seriously, obviously, 247 Network, the 247 Sports Network, we're glad to be a part of it. And as us joining the Big 12 this year, it benefits us even more. In the AAC, we didn't always have websites that cover the teams, so it makes it easier for us to have content like this, obviously, with being in the Big 12. So you had to put that in the positive column for the first half of the year, Kevin.
All right, we'll do that as a follow-up.
All right. So, Chris, obviously, West Virginia comes in here, right, doing well. I don't know. I know obviously everybody thought, and the media thought less of them heading in, if we all have talked about what was said at Big 12 Media Days and all that. But Neil Brown and his team have built some momentum up here. What's the general consensus on that over there?
I think fans are a little bit confused, but excited. They're trying to figure out how it's happening because
do we celebrate yet?
This team doesn't look as different from the previous editions of a Neil Brown team. Like the offense is a little, the defense is pretty good. All the games are tight. They kind of take the air out of the ball. This year, they're just kind of not screwing up. Like they're not making those mistakes. They're not making the crucial mistakes at the crucial points like they did last year. I had a conversation with Mike, who I worked with over at Eers Sports, about how last year West Virginia was 2 plays away from being 4-0 and probably in the top 25 to start last season. Instead, they were 2-2. Fans are furious. They lost to their rival. They lost to Kansas, which at the time was embarrassing. And this year's kind of the same way. They're 4-1, but they're also 2 plays away from being 2-3. But they're not. And I think that's the big difference. Like they're just not making the mistakes that they made last year that infuriated fans, infuriated donors. So I think that's the big difference. And fans are excited because they're winning, but a little confused because it still kind of looks the same.
They don't want to mess with the good thing, right?
Yeah.
Right. That sounds about spot on. You know what I mean? It makes sense. They don't want to celebrate too quick. Yeah. And I know this is something I kind of covered too in the behind the enemy lines, so maybe you'll go a little bit more in depth or whatever here. But with the overlap, obviously Neil Brown coming in at the same time that Holgerson came down to Houston, they're on the same time frame or whatever. So I know there was some concern heading into the season, just in general. I think there was some. Maybe Houston and West Virginia were about in the same spot with what they've gotten from that staffs type deal. And has it backed off a little bit now with this? I know you said still fans aren't sure, but have you seen some of the ones that are certain it was going to be the year to move on that maybe come around a bit to a little bit more? They're still waiting.
Yeah, I think the Pittsburgh game a couple of weeks ago was crucial. Like if West Virginia had lost that one, that might have sent fans in a very bad direction. Winning that one, I was like, okay, now what can you do against a good team? And I'm not sure how far I want to go with good for Texas Tech or TCU. I think they're solid. So like they're not. It's not an embarrassing or if you lost those teams. Like I think they're pretty decent teams. But now it's okay. Now this is different. You're traveling to Houston against the coach that you're going to be compared to, just like we're doing here, with a lot of former staffers, former players, and it's not quite like the Pitt game, but there is this feeling like fans are like, hey man, if you lose this one, it might take away from that 4-1 start. So, like, you just kind of don't want to. I guess that goes for all college football teams, all college football games. You don't want to lose that momentum, but there is a feeling to that for this one about this. So all of a sudden, this game against the 2-3 Houston team, which I don't believe the two teams have ever played each other.
No, they brought it up today in the press conference. He says they've never played before. Dana brought that up. I thought it was kind of funny too.
Yep.
Yeah. So but there is that feeling of, and you really don't want to lose this one.
Kevin, you got anything you want to bring up, or
moving forward? I guess with West Virginia, how do you see the rest of the season playing out for the Mountaineers?
Well, I think this week's going to be a big indicator of that because not just a matchup, but part of what West Virginia has found success with is they've had some key players make big plays, and they lost a lot of guys to the transfer portal in the offseason, like a lot of schools have. They replaced them pretty well, but the depth I'm not sure is quite there, or at least experience depth is not there yet. Injuries keep piling up. Another injury. Neil Brown revealed on Monday that starting left guard Tomas Rimac is definitely out for the game. Starting left tackle Wyatt Milam, who's getting some NFL buzz, is questionable at best. Starting linebacker Trey Lathan out, broken leg in the TCU game. starting safety Aubrey Burks got carted off with a concussion in the TCU game, and it just kind of keeps piling up. And there is this feeling of when's the breaking point here? Because now you're looking at like the linebacking
how
core
much
of
can you withstand to
taking
lose?
a true freshman that's 200 pounds, 210 playing linebacker. How's that going to work? You got walk-ons playing safety or true freshmen.
Right.
When's the breaking point? I think that's the biggest concern for the rest of the season right now.
Do they have a consistent quarterback? Whenever I go back and look at the games, there seems to be like different names that are up there.
Don't feed the trolls.
The answer is no.
Chris flinch when you said that out loud?
Well, Garrett Green started the season, got hurt
Yeah.
at the start of the Pitt game. In came Nico Marchio, finished out that game, played the next game, both wins. I would not say West Virginia's quarterback play has been even average, unfortunately. I think, Green has some explosiveness in the run game. He has a big arm. It is very inaccurate, but really it's hard to tell with these quarterbacks. It's been inconsistent. They've both been hobbled. They both run well, but they both had ankle injuries. But it's one of those chicken or the egg things. Is the quarterback play bad because the wide receivers are terrible? Or do the wide receivers look bad because the quarterbacks are terrible? Because a lot of the blame, at least from the coaching staff, has kind of been pointing the fingers at the receiver play so far. Regardless, the passing game ain't there. So it's a problem.
The more we talk to Chris, the more, it's starting to get a little eerie of all the similarities between these two programs. You're talking about mental mistakes and errors and how do you fix it and clean it up. And I'm thinking, yeah, okay, check mark. And, you're dealing with injuries and how much more can you withstand? Houston's not really had that bad of an injury bug. They lost a few guys, but by far not that bad. And then, yeah, same thing. They've kind of had the same situation that we keep hearing about in press conferences too, that, the receivers have drops and stuff. So is that, obviously that impacts the quarterback. If it hits your hands and you drop it, he's doing it right. But at the same sense, you know what I mean? There's also times when Donovan Smith is super inaccurate as well. And you can see the body language when that happens and there's receivers, I give them credit. They try real hard, but you can see the body language sometimes and these guys keep getting missed at times, you know what I mean? And it's 2023, so you start wondering who's going to get unhappy and who's going to bolt for it's just nonstop. I don't envy these guys' jobs anymore, that's for sure. I never really did, but it's nonstop now, isn't it?
Oh, yeah. And I think God, I was trying to remember who Neil Brown was talking about, but he was telling a story the other day. It was just like you have to treat everything completely different now with how you handle things, how you handle snaps, how you handle the route, how you handle talking to players, because you don't know what's going to happen. And he was talking about a specific player that was leaving, and just was like, hey, you got to handle it differently, but at some point you got to draw the line, and they're just not going to play, and that's that. And it goes both ways too, because even guys that maybe you lose on recruiting out of high school, they've talked about that too, where they got to keep kissing their butts all the way even until they end up somewhere else. They might end up back and on the team a year later.
It's definitely changed the sport and all that itself, and I guess we'll see where it goes from here. I think we're not done with changes and all that, but whatever. At least we're not bored, right?
Content, right?
Yeah, exactly right. So, Chris, what do you think in terms of West Virginia coming down here? What's a couple things they just need to avoid in terms of coming on the road Thursday night? It is what it is. It's not a normal game, but it's not, like you said, it's not Pitt. What do you think? Just a couple of little pitfalls you think they need to do to be successful?
I keep waiting for this other shoe to drop, and that's secondary, and that's a big thing I'd be concerned about against the Dana Holgorsen offense and somebody with Donovan Smith who has an arm. I know it can be a little more inaccurate, but if they get a couple of those big plays, there's still just this feeling of it won't take much to kind of make the secondary spiral back into what it was last year. When it was the worst secondary in the Big 12, one of the worst in the country. And if they hit a couple big plays, that could kind of demoralize that secondary and really set a bad path. I think that's the one thing they really have to avoid is try to keep it under control, keep the big plays out.
Makes sense. It does. In terms of Houston coming and what they're going to bring to West Virginia, obviously, in terms of what they're going to try to do. I would assume they're going to try to run the ball a lot. I think West Virginia's run defense is obviously, like you mentioned before, it's pretty respectable defensively as a whole. West Virginia's kind of been that way. And in the middle up front, like in the line and whatnot, Houston struggled with their line getting pushed up front and all that. The West Virginia defensive line considered hold their own pretty much so far in the season.
Yeah, I currently each week I do a position group power rankings, and I had them in the preseason like second.
Okay.
And then the defensive line coach said something to the effect of, "Hey, I don't know if we have any elite, havoc creators, but we're solid." And I was like, "Oh, that's bad. This is not good." And I dropped them. And it actually might be good because I've heard for years, I've been doing this for a dozen years now, and I hear a defensive line coach or defensive coordinator every year, "I want 6, I want 8, guys in my rotation." And every year it's 5. Like, they're not getting to 8. Like, they always want that, but they don't get there.
Right.
This year, West Virginia's there. I've never seen it before until this season. And if you're asking me, like, is there a guy like a Dante Stills who's, starting like last year, all Big 12 and starting in the NFL as a rookie? No, there's not. But they're just rolling guys in, guy after guy after guy, and routinely making impact plays and being solid on the defensive line. So it's a very deep and solid group.
That's been one of the biggest struggles for Houston. So in terms of their offensive line, so that's worth keeping an eye on. You know what I mean? It sounds like they've got a good unit there and all that. That's takes care of themselves in terms of technique and the mental mistakes that you talk about not making.
Yeah.
So, Kevin, you got anything else on your mind that you're interested about Thursday's matchup?
Chris, how do you think this game's going to play out?
I'm very curious because when I look at the teams and I look at what's good and what's not, maybe that defensive line to O-line matchup you just mentioned, maybe that's like an advantage. But when I look at where West Virginia's strong and where Houston's weak, or where Houston's strong and West Virginia's weak, they don't match up. It's like when West Virginia's good at something, Houston's good at that thing.
Yeah.
Or defending that thing or whatever, like the opposite of that. And then you flip it and where maybe there's a weakness of Houston's defense or something. I don't know if West Virginia has the offense to exploit that. So it's like, what's going to happen here? I think ultimately it ends up with a few more points for West Virginia. I think I put it in our written Q&A together, Rob, like regression and progression to the mean, saying that West Virginia's defense might regress a little bit because I think this is going to be the best offense that West Virginia's faced so far this year. Meanwhile, I think that West Virginia's offense might score a few more points than maybe they have so far because Houston's defense isn't quite what West Virginia's faced so far.
Yeah, and that's fair. I think that's a fair description in terms of Houston's inconsistency. You know what I mean? Like it could be this week's the week that maybe they show up and they eliminate a lot of the mental stuff that's been going on. Maybe the bye week they were able to get something hammered home type deal. And maybe they put together a full game for the first time this season, basically, other than the same Houston game. So it's one of those deals kind of that, like you're talking about. Not sure if this is fool's gold. What's the deal? You know what I mean? And the same thing kind of with Houston. Are they going to just be the team that cannot correct the mental mistakes and errors like that? Or is it going to start clicking more as these younger guys get more reps and stuff like that? And maybe not necessarily young guys, but also new guys in terms to the program. So it could it's tough to even prognosticate at this point. You know what I mean? What Houston's going to show up, and are they going to have the full game? Is it going to be a half and a half type deal? So they've got strengths. They've got some talent on the team at a lot of spots, but can they overcome themselves? Basically, is where it sits at. So I think you know what I hope. I hope it's a good game. I really do. I hope it's fun. It's entertaining. Everyone finds some enjoyment from it. I'll be honest. I prefer it. I think Houston fans would take a competitive football game at this point.
Well, I'm looking for competitive too because I think if it ends up with a Dana Holgorsen and Houston blowout West Virginia game, I'm going to need those good message board posters back from you. I'm back on my
yeah. I'll send some my yours your way as well. What do you think then in terms of if you had? I don't remember. I have not read your answers yet because I got to post that later. But prognostication, like I just said, so difficult. You got any thoughts on how you think this one plays out? Or
I'm pulling up my preseason one right now. Let's see, because so
Okay.
far, I think my record is off a little bit by one game,
Oh,
but pretty close to how some of the other games have gone. But again,
okay. That's not bad. Hey, that's pretty good,
yeah.
especially these days.
No, oh man, I went complete homer with this pick in the preseason. I don't feel good about
Complete
that at all.
homer.
I
You
said
got a
West
score on
Virginia
there, or you just picked it?
41-18. No. I don't feel that way right now.
Okay, I got you.
But I do think it's one of these games that's gonna be something like 30-27, 31-27. I think there's gonna be points. I think it's gonna be close, and I expect it to be ugly early because despite both coaches saying, I like the other
People are
guy
gonna be
and
amped up.
no problems. I think there is gonna be some, "Hey, we want this," kinda going on. So, I think it'll be ugly early, but they'll figure it out, and close game, 3, 4-point game late.
That's fair. I think Cougar fans will take that heading into it. You know what I mean? Just based off of what we've seen so far, I think a lot of people are waiting to see can this team put together four quarters or not. So I don't know. Hey, Chris, look, I really appreciate you coming on. I know I've kind of pimped the 247 thing already, but feel free to take a minute, give everybody your Twitter handle, all that good stuff. I know y'all got a lot going on up there. Great site. If you want to get the inside on West Virginia, for sure, guys, use the power of the network. Go over there and just watch what's going on over there if you want to see the difference.
Yeah, check it out. CM Anderson 247 on Twitter and earsports.com.
All right, wonderful. Appreciate you for joining us, man.
Thanks, Chris. Appreciate it.
We'll see you soon.
All right, thanks a lot, guys.
All right. Thanks, Chris.
And there you have it. That was Chris Anderson, publisher Eers Sports. Obviously, like I mentioned, I love taking advantage of the network this year in the Big 12. There's so much more opportunity to get stuff like this going, so I'm very appreciative of that.
Yeah, good insight too. Good insight.
Oh, absolutely. What better way to do it than get it from the horse's mouth? So
That's right.
So there you have it. Chris tells us what he thinks. We talked a little bit about the game and all that in there. Obviously, I don't know, Kevin. What do you think? As short week. Good thing it's coming off a bye week, like Coach mentioned today in the press conference. So they still get their full week. But what do you think? What do you think? What are you expecting as you go into Thursday night game here?
I was thinking the same thing that Chris was thinking, that it might be ugly early and then it starts to kind of smooth things out, and then whichever team has the least amount of mistakes is going to win this game. But it's so hard to predict. You just don't know which team is going to show up and which half they're going to show up in. And for some reason, I'm feeling positive about this game. I do feel like we're going to come out with a win, as long as we keep things close. All right. And look, that's me. I'm the eternal,
I know I'm not laughing at you.
All right.
With your pain.
I just want to see this team do well. And it's not for Coach Holgerson so much. I mean, I want any coach that's here to be successful. I don't care who they are. Okay. But it's these guys, these athletes. We have a lot of good guys on this team, and, they're good players. I think that they're good players. But I do see, the Cougars, I do see them pulling this out. I think it's a close game. I do kind of think it's going to be an ugly game, but I think it'll be a close game. But I do see us pulling it out with at least by a field goal. That's my prediction.
Yeah, and an interesting insight from Chris there, just in terms of those injuries. The left guard, the left tackle. That's notable.
Sure.
For you to lose is two starting on your left side. I mean, obviously, you would assume they're in a little bit better spot in terms of backups than Houston is, but
the quarterback play also that he was talking about, like a consistency there. I think our pass game can be consistent. Okay,
if they can just clean up a little bit.
Yeah.
Some of these mental mistakes, man, if they can just minimize it some. I mean, it's not, I know people hate to hear it, but they're not that far off from winning some of these games. It's just they can't overcome all of it. And so, it doesn't have to be perfect. You don't have to clean all this up. It doesn't have to be a perfect game. And that's why I think people hold out hope. They see that there's talent on this team.
Yeah.
Who knows, right? This is where you get when you get to this point of the season, and this is how it's been playing out. It's just uncertainty. Just as, that's probably the best way to describe everything that's going on in general right now. It's just some uncertainty. So I don't know, man. I think we'll find out Thursday. I'll get with Kevin, find out what his schedule is later in the week. Maybe we'll do a wrap up after type thing. We'll see how that plays out. We'll pass that on to you guys before we let you out of here. Make sure to subscribe, please. Spread the word.
Check out
Feel
Cougar
free to
Digest.
comment. Give us
Yeah.
some feedback. It doesn't have to be always super positive. Don't
Just
make
let
it
us know you're
intentional.
watching. Let us
If
know
it's
you're watching.
negative, don't make it intentional. Be nice.
No
So-
personal attacks. All right.
That's right. Kevo is independent party in all the situations, so let's leave Kevin out of everything. So,
I'm just a digital.
but yeah, I think we'll see how it plays out on Thursday night, and we'll follow up after, and we'll all learn together, right? We'll see how well they do this week. We'll see how the performance goes.
Hey, and it should be good weather. So,
Find the positives. Put that back on put that on the since we're short on positives on our list from earlier. Put that on there.
we'll do that for the second half wrap up.
All
Better
right,
weather.
so that about does it for episode 6. As always, Kevin, I can't thank you enough. You're one of the main reasons this moves forward. I might have quit earlier when we had technical difficulties, but I didn't because Kevin was here. And so, as always, I'm super thankful for you hopping in and helping out get this moving, and I'm looking forward to see where it grows, man.
It's fun.
All right, we'll see you guys Thursday out at the game, and we'll see you next time on here for episode 7.
Yep. Again, like, follow, subscribe, check us out on Cougar Digest. A lot of good chat there right now. And go in there and put in your 2 cents also.
For sure.
It's always a fun time on the board. Okay. But yeah, see everyone Thursday. And I think I'd like to do a wrap-up show afterwards.
I'll start working on it now so we can have
Yeah.
it ready by then, since it's a
Yeah.
weird week. We got extra days back there, so
Exactly.
I don't want to, promise anything, but I think I would like to hope we can get a wrap-up show by the end of the week.
Yeah. All right, Rob. See you on
Thanks,
Thursday,
guys.
man.
All right.